Hello, I'm JQ and welcome to my guide on how to fit a Cooper S kit to a Mini Cooper. Right, first things first, let's have a look at the car. So this is my Mini Cooper, which I bought in 2002 and have since done 92,000 miles. It's been very reliable, I've been very happy with it, and it's my daily driver. So here's the kit, but what do you get inside the box? Let's lay everything out and see what we got. Some paperwork, a conversion plate and some other bits and bobs, an oil cooler, a fuel boost valve, various gaskets, the roller rockers, the LCB and the twin DTM exhaust, sorry I haven't unwrapped it, the K&N kit, which I'm not too keen on the look of, the rocker covers, new oil filter and spark plugs, and the bit that makes it go really fast, the new cylinder head. Looks pretty good to me. So there's a few problems with the kit as it's arrived. The first being there's no instructions. There's individual instructions for the individual parts, but what I would like to know is what order I'm supposed to do it all in. Obviously I've got to drain the coolant first, that's easy, but what should I do the rest? Who knows? So I'm having to refer to the Mini Magazine article on the conversion number 1, mine's conversion number 22. For example, the alternator bracket, you're supposed to drill the holes out an extra by 10mm because the head sits a bit lower because it's been skimmed or something, I don't really know. But, so obviously I wouldn't have known about that if I didn't read the Mini Magazine article. So what else am I going to come across? Who knows? Well, that's the point of this video, I suppose, so you don't fall into the same traps that I do. The other problems I've got is I got sent the wrong coloured laurels for the back of the car. Mine's the blue, obviously. So I wanted the white ones, but they've sent black ones, so that's got to go back. I've got the analog clock, but that's got a black smudge on the inside of the glass, which is obviously no good. So first things first, this attire is obviously not good enough, so let's get changed. Hooray! Right, first thing we've got to do is get the car in the garage and up on the ramps. So that's the car on the ramps. I think it's time to put the kettle on. So that's coffee break over. So let's get draining the coolant. Okay, let's disconnect the battery, which is the worst job of the whole thing because I've got to then retune the radio. So now the battery is disconnected, I'm going to take off the coil and the alternator. So that's the coil and the alternator out the way. I've also cleaned the engine block up a bit because it was really dirty, so the place stinks of gunk. Next stage is to remove everything else really. So LCB, inlet manifold, head, exhaust. Let's crack on. Oh dear, first snag. I've snapped the bolt in the thermostat housing. One thing I noticed about this oil cooler being here is it's going to be quite difficult to access this clip at the bottom of the radiator, so I'm going to reconnect that now in case I can't get to it later. So now it's time to get rid of the LCB. It's a bit rusted, so I hope this is going to be easy. LCB's rusted on, I'm going to have to chop it off. Hooray, so that's the exhaust out the way, time to get the head off. Okay, so here's the head as it's come off the car. I don't know if that looks good or bad. I'm not entirely sure why there's lots of oil on there. Is it supposed to be like that? I don't know. So there's lots of carbon on the pistons. I'll have to clean all that up, I think. So we're at the halfway point now. Let's go put the kettle on. Well, that's the block cleaned up a bit. Now I've got to do the oil cooler. Okay, so I marked up roughly where it's supposed to go, just following the guide in the Mini Magazine, so let's get drilling. Okay, so the oil cooler is a massive pain in the butt to put in. First things first, these things were the wrong way around, so the bolts were pointing that way. So I was thinking, why can't they go in? And I had to twist them around, then they go in here. This is a real pain to get on as well. I'm not sure if you can see the angle. You have to get the pipes out before it'll actually fit. Obviously you can't do the nuts up on there, so I've been doing it up on the voice. But there's a bigger problem. Right, let's see if you can see the problem with these. This original MPI oil filter. This, the new slimline one that comes with the kit. This is the adapter that comes with it. Screws in. Doesn't screw in. Okay, it's almost time for the cylinder head to go on, but first I had to replace these off the old head and these off the new kit using the classic lock nut method. Refer to the Haynes manual if you don't know what that is. And as if by magic, it's on! Right, let's get this thing torqued up. So that's the head in and torqued up. All I've got to do now is try and adjust these rollers while the car's up on ramps. Okay, so what I've done is jacked up the car slightly off the ground so it's off the ramp, and I've stuck it in second gear. Let's see if the turning wheel will turn the engine. Oh yeah! Don't forget when you're doing roller rockers, you've got to do it for the side, otherwise they're just sliding in and out on the side a bit. So that's the tappets adjusted. Now it's time to get the LCB on, and it's a lovely Maniflow LCB, which you can see here. I've put the lambda sensor back on, but I didn't realise it's exactly the same as the one I just spent 20 minutes chopping off the car. So that's both the manifolds on and bolted up. Next thing to do is the fuel pressure valve thing, which I'm not looking forward to. Okay, and here it is in place. As you can see, I've routed the pipes around the back of the air filter and over to the top, which seems to be the best way of doing it. So one thing that was really annoying about putting this bracket in is it's got to screw into the relay bracket thing on the bulkhead. This is really thin metal, so it's quite difficult to drill through, put something behind the metal to stop it bending. But when I tried to screw this mahoosive screw into the thing, it just wouldn't budge, and even my biggest screwdriver wouldn't fit into the screw. So I ended up using some slightly smaller self-tapping screws to actually fix the thing on. I think it's alright. So for me, the most worrying part of doing this whole project was the fuel return valve, because you have to cut it in order to get it onto the bottom of the new fuel pressure thing. Now these pipes here aren't available anymore, so if I get this wrong, then I'm not going to be able to drive the car anymore. So what I did was I had to chop the end off. Now luckily in the kit, the fuel pressure thing comes this little joiner, so if I do ever want to put it back to standard for whatever reason, I'll just join the two pipes together, tie them together, and it's back to normal. Hooray! So it's time to put the alternator back on, but before we do that, we've got to drill these holes out so they're a bit bigger, so the whole thing sits higher on the head and the alternator can go back in the right place. Let's get drilling. Okay, so here's the problem. Bracket mounted back on, trying to put the alternator back on, but of course oil cooler is in the way of this bracket, and I've also noticed that the bottom oil cooler union or tunion or whatever it's called is in the way of the pulley bolt. So how am I supposed to do that up while this is on? But it's all academic really, because the spin-on thin oil filter that's supposed to go on here, which didn't fit, which I showed you earlier, I went to Mini Spares this morning to try and get a new one with the MPI thread on it. They don't do one, so this supplied bolt here is wrong. So that means in order for me to get the car even running, I'm going to have to take this off, all the pipe work, to get to the oil cooler, which is fine because I've got to take this all off to get the blooming alternator back on. Well, that is the alternator and the fan belt all stuck in and stuck back up again. That was a massive pain in the butt. What I had to do with this was to have it on loose, get everything in, bolted at the bottom first so it pivots back and forwards, then fold the alternator back to where that was in the right position and put the bolt through, then tighten this nut up, undo that bolt, slide it forwards, and then I can do the rest of the bolts up. What a pain. Now this tensioner pulley's all done up. Not quite sure how I'm going to get the oil cooler bolts back on, but yeah, cross that bridge when I come to it. Right, now the alternator's back on, it's time to put the rest of the stuff on, like the coil, put the heater hoses back on, top it up with coolant, put the rocker cover back on, put the air filter on, and then maybe give it a start. But first, time to put the kettle on. Hooray! So the front of the engine is done, all the bits and bobs plumbed in. I haven't put the spark plugs in, it's probably got to turn the engine over until the oil pressure's up. Filter's on, looks a bit weird, doesn't really fit very well because of the rubber bit on the bottom. So all I've got to do now is bung the exhaust on. Well, that's the exhaust on, fairly straightforward. If you've done one of these before, then you know what to do. I use a car jack to jack up the catalyst in the middle. The only problem I've got is this last bolt at the back. The pipe's really big, and the supplied U-bolt, I think it's called, just wouldn't fit around it, so it's kind of bodged at the moment. I'll have to get one that's slightly bigger. So all I've got to do now is reconnect the battery, put some coolant in, and then let's get it started. Okay, so this is the test. Let's turn it over and see what happens. Oh, pressure light's out. Let's put the spark plugs in. Okay, that's spark plugs in. Let's give it a start. So I've had to move the car out of the garage to tidy up a bit because it was a complete tip in here. So the next thing to do is take the car for a test drive. Okay, so that's the test drive out of the way. The first thing I noticed was no power whatsoever, so not quite sure what's going on there. I think it's probably because I need to take it onto a rolling road. As soon as I put my foot down going out the estate, just nothing happened, just bogged down. So let's get it on a rolling road and we'll get that sorted. So that's the rolling road session complete. Let's take it out of the road and see what it's got. Okay, so this is kind of two cars in one. I'm doing 30 miles an hour in fourth gear down some normal country roads, and it drives pretty much exactly the same as it did before. The big thing for me is I wanted it to be just as quiet as it was before. And I had a Maniflow box on the back, so it wasn't quiet, but it wasn't noisy, and it was perfectly fine. So now, with this new kit, it sounds exactly the same as it did before if you drive it normally. But if you give it some beans, then you get a bit of a nice noise. Straight up to 60, no problems at all. The main issue I had with the kit is that I really wanted the low down torque to be a bit better, so when you're driving along at 30 miles an hour in fourth, and you put your foot down, it doesn't really go anywhere, which is what it didn't really do before, which also means that when you go up slight hills in fourth gear, again, there's no extra power. The power only really comes on about 2,500 RPM, but when it does, it sounds nice. So the last thing I needed to do was put the stickers on the sides and the badges on the front, which I've done, so the car looks properly nice now. Just put the plate down here, which all looks good. So let's look at some conclusions. Is the car more powerful? Well, after going on the rolling road and having the fuel pressure regulated up to 3 bar, I think it was, we've got 84 brake horsepower, which is pretty good considering the original car had 63 from the factory, and not bad considering I've done 93,677 miles. The car feels better on the road, which is great, but you do have to give it some revs because it's so easy to bog it down. If you get to a junction and you put your foot down a bit, it can just go boo. So you have to kind of put the clutch down, rev it, and then get going again. Obviously I don't drive it mentally all the time anyway, so it's not really much of an issue, but it's been good. A couple of times I've had to overtake something on a country road, I can just nip round it, which has been great. Let's look at costs. So the whole kit, if you click buy online on the website, is, I think it's just under 2 grand, something like that, not including the head exchange. Is it worth that much money? Well, I kind of priced up all of the individual bits and it came to roughly 1,700 quid. So essentially you're paying 200 odd quid for the Cooper name. I think that's worth it because this is now a proper Cooper Escort, the badges and all the other things, and it's in the register, so I think that's worth it. You definitely have to put it on a rolling road because the fuel pressure regulator that came with it, I think mine and the car that's in the magazine both had about 2.5 bar pressure. So obviously you have to put it on a rolling road session, so that's another cost, which is 100 odd quid, something like that. Fitting costs for Mini Sport, I think, is about 600 quid. So has it been worth me putting this on myself? Yes, because I've saved 600 quid fitting. But how long did it take me to do it? Essentially, you could do it in a weekend if you started on Saturday morning and you finished Sunday night. I started this in August and I'm recording this final piece in October and I've only just finished the car. So it's taken me nearly 3 months to get the car completely finished. There's been a whole load of silly things that have gone on, like the wrong colour decals was supplied with the kit. There's no instructions with the kit, so I've had to kind of guess stuff. I had issues with the oil cooler adapter being wrong. Mini Sport sent me 2 extra oil filters because I thought that was the wrong problem, but it turns out it was the adapter itself that was the wrong thread. But overall, yeah, it's been a bit of a slow process when things have gone wrong. So if you do get the kit and you buy it online, make sure you've got everything there ready and waiting to go and then fit it and you should be fine. So I suppose the big question is, am I happy with it? Yeah, I've got a Cooper S. It goes really fast when I want it to and it drives pretty normally when I'm not putting my foot down. So yeah, I'm happy with it. In fact, I'm so happy with it, I'm gonna go for another little drive.